Okay, the 2012 Total Recall remake, or Total Remake, or Total Redo, whichever I'm going to refer to it. I was a huge fan of the 90s Schwarzenegger one. If you watch it now, it does have a very much 90s, very much Schwarzenegger feel to it. But for its time, it was really cutting edge. So in this one, a lot of the basic premise is still the same, but it's still a different story. I've heard this version is much closer to the, I think it's We Have Your Memories for Wholesale, something like that was the original title of the short story. So what you have to do with Colin Farrell's character is a factory worker, where he builds essentially synthetic robots. In order to get to work, which is on the other side of the planet, chemical warfare has destroyed most of the planet. The colony, Australia, is connected to essentially what is left of Europe, which is now like the United British Federation, through essentially a tunnel that goes through the center of the Earth. So occasionally they go on this, looks like a giant pylon going from Australia to essentially the Great British Empire in 17 minutes. Don't worry about doing the math, it's a tremendous distance to travel in 17 minutes. His best friend, played by, I want to say it's Bokeem Woodbine. I want to say that's his name. And he was like, he has these really weird dreams where he and Jessica Biel are kind of fighting their way through a bunch of like synthetic soldiers, the things that he essentially builds at work. And at the exact same time, he always wakes up and there's his wife Kate Beckinsale like, what's wrong? Tries to explain it to her. He feels like his life is essentially pointless. So then on his way to recall, he meets the three-breasted woman who they show it. And they could do that for PG-13, but maybe they have some way of saying, that like fantasy violence. Maybe it was like fantasy nudity. I don't know. So then he goes to recall. And he decides that he wants to choose, of course, the super secret agent one. When the process of getting injected, that's what guy freaks out. Whoa, wait. Because he tells him before, if you do the memories of a fake mistress while you have a mistress, that's when you get lobotomized. So of course, with double checking, it's like, oh, well, find out that he is a secret agent. You don't know if this is part of the fake memory or if this is actually him. But at this point in time, you really probably don't care that much. Then in the only CGI'd fight, which I really did not like, CGI Colin Farrell then destroys like the whole group of the police forces trying to get him. Goes home, tells his wife Kate Beckinsale, who works for the same police force, like, yeah, I killed those guys, but it wasn't 20, it was only 10. So those two have their first good brawl. One of the advantages of Kate Beckinsale having done all of the Underworld movies is she's gotten really good at fight scenes, or they've gotten really good stunt doubles that look just like her. So you have a really, really well done fight scene between those two. It made a lot more sense than seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger fight Sharon Stone. Great back and forth, good use of the environment, and all that. Overall, it worked really well. And that's where this movie then takes off to being kind of like an almost generic futuristic chase film. It has two fairly long chase sequences. One ends up being the floating car chase sequence, which I wasn't that big of a fan of. I don't know if two different studios did it, but whenever they changed certain camera angles, it went from looking really good to looking just slightly out of place, like the two styles didn't sync up very well. Now the elevator chase sequence, they're elevators that of course are going, it's a Demarchian layout, so they're going down, across, up, down, left, right, so they're going all these different directions. So they're essentially running through elevator shafts that are crisscrossing. Looks that section is really, really well. Which leads to a really solid fight between Kate Beckinsale, Jessica, Colin Farrell, and a robot inside an elevator. It's done really, really well. What you end up finding out is that either this is his memories or it's the recall. And he's also potentially a double agent working for both Copenhagen and Matthias being the rebel or terrorist leader, and Copenhagen being the person who essentially rules the Great British area. So he's constantly going back and forth between, Is he actually this guy on this side? Did he originally work for Copenhagen and he's this missing, super intelligent, I think like super soldier? Was he working for him and then he flips to work for this guy? Or is he always been working for this guy and then he faked the flip to work for this guy? So those sorts of twists are not really fully explored or explained, but it's predominantly an action film. Oh no, not bad. This is essentially an action film. It's predominantly a chase sequence. The fighting between, like I said, Beckinsale and Colin Farrell is done well. Beckinsale and Jessica is done well. Actually, she probably steals more of this movie than she should have, knowing that the main character is, of course, Colin Farrell. All in all, not bad. It's a decent amount of special effects. They do a good job. In some areas, you can tell where they take the practical effects and then they put the CGIs in the background, or when they're showing a small level and there's all the practicals, then above it is all the additional CGI work. Most of that looks pretty good. There's some moments where it doesn't quite seem to work out that well, and lots of moments where you really, really have to go through suspension of disbelief. When they go through the final fight sequence, which is going on with the pylon in between the two sides, and then they begin to escape the pylon and climb on the outside of it. Bear in mind, this travels from Australia to Great Britain, going through the Earth. Does in 17 minutes. That would make me think the amount of speed this thing is going is very, very fast. Let alone trying to climb on the outside of it and go on a ladder. They do a unique job when they do the transition because you hit a point where the gravity is reversed for a small section of time, and that's done pretty interesting. That being said, very futuristic action adventure movie, decent. I still probably say the one from the 1990s, the now campy Schwarzenegger one, had a lot more cutting edge feel to it at the time, where this one, with the way movies look now, kind of seems like if it would have come out last year, it would be this huge technological achievement. But now with most movies kind of looking pretty similar, it doesn't have anywhere near as much of that amazing special effects punch.